Nazjatar, the part of patch 8.2 that, unlike Mechagon, pushes both character and plot progression. As we've already covered, Mechagon is shaping up to be a very solid iteration on world content, being an excellent aside where progression is divorced from the gear of your character. Have Blizzard taken a similarly inventive approach with Nazjatar? Well, with the variety of content, the quality of the zone, and the experimental Benthic gear, I'd say yes, tentatively, but the real question is it enough? Hey everyone, and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. Today we are taking a deeper look into Nazjatar on the PTR. This is a more traditional zone with comparisons drawn to the likes of the Firelands, the Isle of Thunder, and Argus. Now, each of those zones had been evolutions of prior outdoor zones, and Nazjatar really is no different. It attempts to take the best of those zones and to prune the worst. So, has it been successful? Well, to find out, we're going to look through every single element of it. First, the zone itself. It is larger than Firelands and the Isle of Thunder, and it's actually quite similar to Argus in terms of scale. It takes long enough to get around on foot, and the density of the gameplay areas, I mean, it's high to the point of sometimes being frustrating. However, while I think this does result in some of the same frustrations we saw with Argus, they've considered it well enough that I think once you get the lay of the land, you should be able to get around Nazjatar with ease. Getting around is not going to be a massive concern though for long, because the main quests guide you close to the flight points pretty darn quickly. And that does bring me on to what I think the best part of the zone is, just how darn beautiful it is. On every flight path, I'm enjoying the surroundings. It's astonishingly pretty. It could be lit a little bit better, but with a variety of deep sea aesthetics that they're showing off, I think Nazjatar is a visual success, except perhaps for one thing: the Zinashari Ruins area. It's basically just dropped in straight from Azuna. That of course does make a hell of a lot of sense, and we've seen loads of asset reuse in World of Warcraft over time. I mean, come on, how many times have we been into a building or a cave that's familiar? The only thing I would say is that it sort of feels like a copy-pasted area more than just asset reuse. They probably could have done that stuff a little bit better, but still, it overall is some of the best work visually the team have done. So as a zone, I think Nazjatar is an absolute win. Enough of the looks though. What's actually inside it? What is there to do? Well, actually, there's a lot to do. In the vein of Argus, it's just full of stuff. First, I would like to praise it for having loads of the non-essentials. The zone is full of things to click. Everywhere you go, there's something sparkly. There are powerful buff shrines, items that grant you stealth or reduce your damage taken, or even magically, there's magically hidden chests. Basically, loads of things to click. For your first few forays into the few different areas, it's quite nice, it's definitely worth you looking around for clickable items that will make your life easier, especially if you're heading in with a lower item level. So that stuff all can be quite fun, and really anything that makes the world feel more interactive and alive, that's a massive positive in my book, and I think Nazjatar does a decent bit on that end. The enemies here are also quite good. They're designed with a similar approach to the mobs in Mechagon, with density of mobs being high and some of them being, just basically featuring more dangerous abilities for you to dodge or to counter, which I think is very important to keeping the gameplay of World of Warcraft engaging. There's also plenty in the way of variety. There are over 30 rares for a start, which means that there'll be a lot to do in getting the Nazjatar achievements. Saying that though, I do have some gripes with how it feels as compared to Mechagon, which I will cover later. For now though, let's just discuss the quests. They're the standard. They are World of Warcraft quests, my friends. I don't think many of us are going to be surprised. It is killing mobs, it is picking some things up, it is maybe talking to a few highlighted NPCs. What matters with World of Warcraft quests really is how those actions are framed, what your reasoning is, and I think Nazjatar has mixed success here. Some of the quests are a little bit engaging, primarily through showing you Chandris or Thalistra's past and showing the fallout of Zinashari's destruction. Saying that, they definitely could have done a lot more. There are wasted opportunities. The 10,000 years of suffering that the elven spirits have gone through, or maybe how intense the transformation from elf to naga must have been, well, none of that's really addressed much, and I think they just could have done a lot more to add emotional depth to the world. Generally, the experience of questing in Nazjatar is fine, but there are very clear ways in which Blizzard could improve, both in terms of gameplay and narrative impact. Now, I'll give you an example. There's a quest in the zone, and this quest is introducing you to one of the raid bosses, right? And it lets you actually fight the raid boss. Now, by this, what I mean is we find out the name of this boss and the boss's relationship with existing characters, and then we just hit them for a while as they do minimal damage back to us. It I mean, it basically does nothing for gameplay or just the experience when they could have shown off a basic version of some of the boss's mechanics, or even given, you know, some decently written dialogue about the relationship between the boss and the characters who are involved. And they don't really do that, which is a bit of a letdown. Now, with that said, let's talk about what I think most people will find to be more important: the system surrounding the area. Basically, the reasons why you actually log on and play, and what that experience is like. Nazjatar is comprised of the usual, which is kind of disappointing as compared to Mechagon. To boil it all down, you are here for prismatic mana pearls. They are the currency of the zone that you spend on gear and other rewards, and of course for reputation, which will of course be needed for rewards, but also to unlock flying. There are a few ways to achieve both of those goals, so let's just go through them. Of course, you can do your world quests, and they're a mixed bag. They still are. This is the bit that disappoints me actually kind of the most. Notably, they're really spread out in a way that's just aggravating. They learned a great lesson with faction assaults, but they've just forgotten that here. With the faction assaults, you would have a nice little quest hub that kind of mirrors the satisfaction felt, you know, of when you have loads of overlapping quest objectives. And that meant that it actually felt great to, you know, kill a mob that drops a quest item and then pick up something else beside that mob for another quest in the same area. It's efficient and it's satisfying. They forgot this with Nazjatar, it seems, focusing instead on having you just flying around the zone a lot to clear up world quests once or twice per day. And that to me does feel like a step backwards over the faction incursions of patch 8.1. And it's interesting just how it compares so unfavorably to Mechagon. In my video discussing Mechagon, I praised how the game inspired exploring the zone each day. But given the extra size of Nazjatar and the less exploratory feel of Nazjatar, it no longer feels like I'm there doing things because I want to do them. It feels like I'm there doing things because the game is telling me to. I'm not in a sandbox finding stuff, I'm just crossing chores off a list. Now, this is on paper kind of unfair to say on Nazjatar because it also does have hidden chests and plenty of rares, but while playing it, that's kind of it. I just felt like Nazjatar was sort of lacking something, and I'll explain more depth on that as we move on later. There is one positive for the world quests though. In favor of reusing the Tortolin mini-games as quests here, they recycle some of the other mini-games. So there are treasure hunting world quests in Nazjatar that you can unlock after finding a quest item in the hidden chests, and they're pretty good because they give you the Blingatron circuit design and Jewelcraft as the mini-games. Now look, it's not anything that's super special, they are simple games, but matching the colored runes and uncrossing some lines, that is a nice change of pace from racing around to tag a rare. So that's definitely a good thing, and unlike the Tortolin games, which I think are needlessly long, they are over with pretty quickly. So they're a good little break up in the gameplay pace. Now, world quests are of course not the only thing to do for reputation and pearls. You also get some daily bounties from your allies. Now, these can be bounties to kill mobs of a certain type or to kill rares, or maybe can be, you know, requisition quests, which are to get you to pick up some of the zone items that I mentioned briefly. Like, you know, say, go pick up 3 of the damage reduction cones, or grab a selection of buff items from around the area. And I'm going to be frank with you, these are tedious, right? They are kind of tedious. Now, obviously, there's still room for tuning here, but, you know, the first time I got tasked with picking up one of each item in the zone, my eyes kind of rolled a little bit. When I got the bounty to kill 25 Hydras, it was just a little bit boring. However, for reputation and mana pearls, they are a thing that you will end up doing. Now, there's also more here. There's the PvP event that pops up for war mode players called the Battle of Nazjatar. Now, this has just got a pretty simple zone control system for picking up points like Eye of the Storm, but without center flags, and it just incentivizes more PvP for the war mode players. It gives you some Nazjatar battle commendations, which are used for unique rewards like a mount, some faction toys, and one of the PvP-centric essences. And we're not sure exactly how often this event will happen. It seems fairly regular on the PTR though, and yeah, when this event is up, it also pops up a new world quest for killing people of the opposing faction for 5 more of the commendations. All in all, I'd say that this is something that spices up the zone for world PvP players. It's not mind-blowing or anything, but I think it's a really, really, really good addition. It's just something that won't test well in PTR because people aren't really playing the game under usual circumstances, but I think it will really shine on live. And that's basically it for the main content, but there is a fair bit more. Nazjatar has bits of loosely hidden side content in the zone, like quest items that give you little side events. There's a quest pickaxe that drops, which leads you to mine up some gems that creates an elemental for you to fight, or finding a seed that grows into a carnivorous lasher that you can feed until you fight it. Nazjatar also, of course, has the companions that you fight with. You level them up as well. That grants them more abilities. And more importantly, as you go through the zone with them, they talk about the zone and how it relates to their race and their backstory as characters. And they're actually really, really nice touches. And there could be more there in the release version once we actually just get a few steps more up in the reputation. Now, there's one thing that I do want to address in a good bit more depth here, and that's the Benthic gear. This is a very interesting gearing system, and it's kind of something I hope we see more of in the future. So back in February, we talked at length about the Crucible of Storms gear and the unique effects that the gear had. And we noted that really the community's been talking about gear being boring for years now, about things no longer feeling unique and interesting. Now, of course, the team tried to implement fun and unique effects in the Crucible of Storms gear, and I think they were met with praise. I certainly loved it. They're taking a few more steps here. So Benthic gear is the gearing system of Nazjatar. It's purchasable from a vendor with mana pearls, and at its core, I think it's pretty great. Benthic gear is gear with an upgradable item level, fixed secondary stats, and fixed effects that are active in Nazjatar and the Eternal Palace, including things like reduced frost damage taken, increased run speed, and even a chance to loot fish from corpses. So remember that Arcano Crystal lottery from Argus? Basically, that is gone. The only element of randomness here is that you purchase a token for a gear slot, and each slot only has a few items for that slot. So, you could get the fish looting cloak or the frost damage reduction one. In fact, the most recent build of the PTR added in some more effects, so we've yet to see them all. Then another positive thing here is that there are quite a few items for each slot, but it's actually going to be quick and easy to get the one that you need, because getting the gear token only costs 5 mana pearls. Basically, getting the gear is easy. The thing that actually takes time and effort and loads of mana pearls is upgrading the gear. So I think that's a far more fair balance than, say, the Argus situation with its catch-up. Now, on PTR, the acquisition rate of these mana pearls and the costs of upgrading, they are changing. So while we can't say how long it will take, I can say that it looked like it would take just over 1 week to get a piece to 430. That was before the recent update, which over tripled the cost. So we're just going to have to wait and see how this is on live, as the acquisition rate will drastically change how this system actually feels to players. What's pretty clear, though, is that it serves every purpose. Character progression that does not require group content, it's that. It's also quick and effective catch-up at its very basics that will help you get, say, alts up to speed, but for the high-end players, because you can get that gear boosted up quite a bit, it does provide you with an immediate goal once the patch launches. It's a big experiment. It's a pretty drastic move away from the previous catch-up mechanics that were, very significantly focused on RNG, and that's the thing that's just featured for expansions now, so I'm glad that they're moving away from that. And I'm really excited to see where they'll go with this, and hopefully players respond well, because thankfully it is mostly a non-RNG based progression system, which I'm pretty happy about. However, despite this highly positive note, I do have to speak a bit of truth here. Nazjatar to me kind of feels like a slog. A rep grind based on killing rares, doing every world quest available, and spending some time every day grinding out dailies. I mean, that sounds familiar, right? Doesn't it? And that's what Nazjatar fundamentally is. This is World of Warcraft, and for better or worse, that is a large part of how the game is designed. I had to ask myself a question while writing this because of that problem. Why do I feel disengaged by Nazjatar when I enjoyed Mechagon, when, honestly speaking, the difference in content is really quite small? Well, as I said earlier about the quests, it's all about the framing. Mechagon is framed as a mostly optional grind and is designed to let you make as much progress as you want pretty much at any given time, right? It's a bit more freeform. However, with Nazjatar, given that the mana pearls are drip-fed and are needed to purchase player power, it just feels like the player is kind of forced to do them, especially given just how far spread apart the world quests are and how the bounties are kind of tedious. Doing all that stuff every day, it's a little bit tedious. I mean, it certainly is plenty of World of Warcraft that you can go and play, with a better reward system than in the past, so I will say that much. I guess, yeah, it's like I haven't felt as intimidated by a blue exclamation mark since against the Firelands, maybe. Nazjatar is a larger zone, it's got similar content, but it just has that aura of being a list of chores rather than a place to enjoy. In fact, Preach compiled his feedback in the PTR forums, which I suggest you read if you're interested in how he'd improve the zone, but a particular section stuck out to me. Here's the quote: "I see a lot of content that feels pushed onto us as of necessity, rather than it being interesting or involved in any way, creating a feeling of resentment to the zone compared to wanting to go and enjoy it." Now, while I don't harbor any resentment towards this zone yet, I definitely feel that way about some places in the game. If I had any comparison to make, it's kind of like my experiences in the Firelands and on the Timeless Isles. So I really liked doing the Firelands daily quests until they ended up becoming a chore for reputation. Then when it came to the Timeless Isles, I kind of just went there and I felt like gambling in the clearly rigged treasure cave, or, getting mercilessly camped by a group of people farming bloody coins. I was kind of just, going and playing the game. I was doing similar content, killing the similar mobs, clicking on some items on my screen, running from place to place. But it felt different between the Firelands and the Timeless Isles, and I think that's what's kind of important here. So, to reiterate, Nazjatar is a pretty good zone as far as that type of World of Warcraft zone goes. It has more than enough for players to do, and we haven't even seen all of it yet. As of the most recent PTR build, there are even now time-limited events that spawn in with an area, or on an area for players to work together on. I'm assuming that completing those will get you some mana pearls. With Nazjatar as a whole, though, I think there are complaints to make, and while I agree with most of Preach's feedback on the forum, I think for me, my real concern is a bit more under the skin. If I had to suggest an avenue for improvement, I think Blizzard need to get a better grasp on what meaningful work is for their players, because I think that's actually what a lot of people want. They want meaningful work on their character. Mechagon is a pretty good example as far as I'm concerned. It's full of good content. I can set my own pace there without feeling pressured and work towards my own sort of player set goals. When I go to Nazjatar, it feels a bit different. A lot of the same content is there, but at the end of the day, it's a different experience, and I would say, personally, it's one that is a bit worse. As a whole, though, I'd say that patch 8.2 is generally full of pretty good content, and it does actually try to do quite a bit to disrupt the status quo, especially on itemization and just a few design quirks. But I think this is the important takeaway. Patch 8.2 is great for people who like to play World of Warcraft, but just haven't really felt compelled to right now, if you like the core of it. But if you don't like playing World of Warcraft right now, this is not your patch. Any sweeping changes, if they're to come, will be in patch 9.0, the next expansion, and Blizzard are very aware of this. They're making good steps to make the current game better for current players, and I definitely appreciate that they're doing that. But if you want the major stuff, you're going to have to wait to the next expansion. I think 8.2 kind of helps to prove that. Anyway, that was all pretty heavy stuff, so basically I'm just going to kick it to you. What do you think about Nazjatar on the PTR if you've played it? How do you think it compares to Mechagon or even to Argus? Is patch 8.2 shaping up to be something that you want, or are you kind of done with the core game until Blizzard decide to shake it up a bit with the next expansion, if they do? Let me know in the comments or tweet at me. This is a pretty critical time for the game, and I think this is really where a broad variety of opinions need to be considered. So please let me know. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.